BMX for me, and this I'm sure is part of why it was so important, because it was the first thing that I was kind of good at, and I wasn't even necessarily good at it at first, but I was okay. It was better than all my friends around here, you know. Like I won the first race at the Plainwell BMX track when it opened. That was my second year racing. That was a big deal. And it wasn't like my friends from school. There was a couple kids from school, but it was kids from, the area. I don't know how they found out about it back then. But that was my thing. And it stayed my thing and it's still my thing, which is kind of crazy. And I don't even know if that's healthy at this point. Like it's still the thing I want to do more than anything else is ride a BMX bike, not a bike, not a mountain bike, not a road bike, a BMX bike, specifically a BMX bike. I am 60 years old. That's what I want to do every single day, and I do every single day. And
That's
I
cool.
did tonight. And it was raining. I rode this little mini ramp in our barn, and it was fun by myself, listening to music.
BMX Breakthrough is bridging the gap from old school to new school, from tracks to manufacturers, from new riders to their local tracks, and it doesn't stop at racing, but the mission is to connect people with bikes. Join me, Jay Oaks, as I interview key people in the sport and in the industry that are involved in their local circles, in their communities, at their local tracks, and aiming to make a difference on a local level. You'll hear stories, marketing tips, failures, successes, and a way to make a difference in your local BMX community. Let's dive in as we kick off this next episode. I'm curious. How did you get into photography? Was it because of bikes?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got a job at BMX Plus magazine in 1986, and I was hired as a writer. Um, and it's kind of the natural progression to, here's a camera, see what you can do, and just kind of quickly trial by fire. But I really learned from the best. John Carr, who's still an active photographer for like mountain bike action and stuff. He was the editor of that magazine and my mentor and pretty and super honest with his criticism, but like not ever like threatened by anyone or anything. So he wanted my photos to be as good as his. You know what I mean? Like he was never trying to like hold me in place or anything like that. So yeah, he's just a great mentor. But I, I that California run was only a few years, and I didn't. I mean, I would shoot photos still, but like film photography is really expensive. And when you work for a magazine, they pay for everything. I had no idea. Like I had no sense of scale of what I was doing. Go to a. I didn't shoot that many races. I became like a freestyle photographer, even though I had racing background. But I would go to a freestyle contest with like 10 rolls of black and white film and 6 rolls of color film and just fire away. And the company pays for it to be developed and all that. And I mean, even back then, that was a lot of money. But when I pay for it myself, be more selective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you have access to a dark room? Did you ever do any of that?
No, I never did. My dad had, it's funny because I started to say my dad had a little darkroom setup, but I think he just set it up a couple times and it wasn't like permanently in place. But I wasn't really interested. I wasn't that into photography or anything. I was looking around because I know I have a photo that I remember. It's a photo of me, not a great photo, but it's a photo of me riding BMX that he shot and developed. I remember being there when he developed it in the dark room, which was kind of cool. But that's like a singular memory. Like that was like the only time that, I mean, I'm sure he did other times, but that's the only time I remember that happening. And I don't have other photos like that. 'Cause I don't, my dad was a super busy guy, so it's a lot of time to block out and dink around in the dark room and figure it out. Like
Yeah.
the photo I'm thinking of is like a high contrast. Let's see if I can find it, Jay. I know we're really in the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, this is fascinating.
But
Yeah,
see, here's a photo
I see it.
from,
Yeah.
it's got to be, the mid 90s. It's black and white print. It's me, but I definitely shot this myself, like on a timer, on a tripod, like sitting on the floor with a ventriloquist dummy. Is just me being weird. But so the, I did kind of keep up with it. But I will tell you, in the last few years, since we started the Greystoke magazine that you've seen and know about, and hopefully we talk about, that's when I really wanted to step up my photography game. I have a really good friend. His name is Sean Newton, who's kind of my current photography sensei. And he always has different cameras, and he's helped me get, like, he got me this. I had this a Canon G15, I think it's called. It's like a little point and shoot.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. But cameras like that, you can never, like, there's always a lag on the shutter. So shooting action shots is tough. Or you have to kind of figure it out. You have to like guess um the timing, and it's really hard to get right. But when Greystoke started, I really wanted to step it up. And he always helped me get cameras too. I have a Fuji XT1, I think it's called, and it feels and looks like you probably saw, I had it when I last time I saw you. That's what I shot all those photos with. But it feels like an old school camera. It's real heavy. It's a metal body. It's
Yeah,
all
manual like analog adjustment of your
yeah, yeah.
f-stop and shutter speeds.
Yep, everything is
Yeah.
is analog. I mean, it's all automatic too if you choose to go that way. But just to
Those are
shoot
cool.
off camera flash and shoot with different lenses. I mean, I always shot with different lenses, but that was kind of the challenge there. So as I'm going through
That's
this and
awesome.
finding out photos that I have shot along the way, but I don't know. I don't know where that one. It's not even a good photo. It's kind of historically cool photo because it's
That's
from.
awesome.
There's a lot of crazy things about it because I know it was shot like in front of my house in the dead of winter, like jumping like off a snowbank with like boots on and the whole thing, like winter gear when I was like 12 or 13. So
Oh wow.
um, it's kind of cool in that way, but I don't know where it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Um, so I was actually curious. So when you talked about John and him being your mentor in photography early on, were there ever do you have any memorable photos where he like broke your heart with authentic criticism?
No, that would be no, but I mean, I can tell you without question, there were times where I was so excited about a photo. But then you're looking, also keep in mind back then, like color photos, you're looking at a slide, like a little tiny slide. And you know what I'm talking about? Slide. It's like I'm explaining magazines to my kids right
Yeah.
now. Like,
Okay.
you know what a slide is? I'm sure I have one. Yeah, look at this. I have slides. These are slides I shot in the 1000 of bike riders. That's how big it is. So you look at it with a loop, which is like a loop is like this little magnifying glass thing, and you hold it up to the light or you put it on a light table,
Yeah.
and you can really look at it then. And like I'd be super excited about a photo, and then John would look at it. Oh, it's soft. Soft meaning it's not in focus, and you're like, oh, dang it. So those kinds of things. But um, I mean, I got magazine photos published like straight away, like Eddie Fiola at the Pipeline, and like lots of good freestyle photos. I got
That's awesome.
a cover photo. It's probably right here. I only worked for BMX Plus for a year and a half, and then I was offered a job at this other magazine called Super BMX. But the person that offered me the job was Steve Giberson. Do you know who that is?
I know the name. I've never met
He's
him.
he's kind of he's been at like Frogtown in events. Like actually, he's selling photos at Frogtown this last time. But he's a photographer, and he went on to become a um like motocross photographer. He worked for Vital MX and all that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
pretty legit dude. And so I went from John Carr teaching me how to shoot photos to Steve Giberson, who was in, in the same league as John. Like he had worked at BMX Action before that and was a super respected dude too. So I
That's
don't know.
awesome.
I can't find anything I'm looking for right now, but I'm sorry. I'm so overdressed, but it's freezing cold in Michigan today. Here's I didn't shoot any of these, but here's that's the late Harry Leary, and I'm in a photo right behind him. It's kind of funny.
Oh wow.
I did get, I also, was a test rider for the magazine. So I ended up having my picture in the magazine a lot too. I was
Oh,
kind of
wow.
like now where like in my job at Haro, like I do so many different things, even at the magazine, it's kind of the same way. It's like, oh, you can, I was like a decent jumper or whatever. So John was like, well, let's suit you up. Does the uniform fit? It's kind of one of the deals. And it did. And I was like normal size guy, I guess. So tested some really horrible bikes. I can tell you that much.
Oh,
Some good ones too. Some really good
okay.
ones. Some cool.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, this weekend I was at Guy Cooper's house for the vintage BMX race he put on. And
Yeah.
one of the conversations that I had was with Todd Slavic, who was
Hmm.
talking about riding for. Actually, I won't say who it was, but anyway, talking about riding for a company, and he's like, the bikes were so bad, I just couldn't ride them. They were so
Really?
terrible. Yeah, he received a couple of them, and that's when he started playing around and experimenting with his own geometry and trying some things out. But he had just gotten these bikes out of the box, and it was like one model, and he was like, "This is terrible." And then he got another one, and he's like, "This is slightly less terrible."
Because I
And
only remember him writing create. So
okay,
like I don't know who else it would be.
yeah,
I'm sure he wrote for someone else, but but I think not to interrupt you, but I think the limo, free agent limo was developed for him, right?
yeah,
The super long one. And
yeah.
that's the first like extra long BMX frame. So thanks Todd Slavic.
That's
Otherwise we'd all be riding 17-inch top tube still.
crazy iconic. I had no
Yeah.
idea. And in that conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, you're responsible for that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
all these bikes that are so difficult to ride down the track, you're the reason we don't have to ride them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's true. Yeah,
it's
I knew.
crazy.
Sorry, that's what you
Uh,
get into with me, like when I know
no,
too much.
no, I love
Jim,
it.
jumping Jim Pratt.
Jumping Jim Pratt. Well, I mean,
Just jump right to
that
that.
was the conversation. Yeah, we can go right to that. I do want to know about, there's conversations that we can have about Greystoke and about BMX in general. Like, I want to know where that
Yeah.
started. But Jumpin' Jim Pratt, because I texted you and said, "Will you do an interview?" And you said only if we talk about Jumpin' Jim Pratt.
Yeah. Just that was just such an awesome moment for me. It was so you know why it was such an awesome moment? Because he was so stoked. You could tell he was just so happy that not that someone because he had a pretty short window in the BMX limelight, and it was a long time ago. And I'm old enough to know. And I was just such a devout BMX action reader. And I mean, I read everything, like all those obscure things I was mentioning about him were maybe like I might have mentioned every photo he had in the magazine, and that I think it freaked him out a little. He was, how do you know? But it's just, it's what it's what you're into, like you could ask me something about current events and I wouldn't know anything. But I remember
Yeah,
that, because all that stuff just is burned into my brain and kind of shaped the course of my whole life. It really did to this day.
which is
But
cool. Yeah, I had heard of him. I was familiar, uh, like on the surface of who he was, and then
yeah,
I went over and I started having a conversation with him, and then you walked over and he's like, "I'm Jim," and you're like, "Jumpin' Jim," and you knew exactly who he was, and then
yeah,
um,
I'd never seen him or anything.
it was really cool. And actually, this last episode that came out was with Craig Kundig, and Jim
Hmm.
works for Craig.
Yeah, right.
And so anyway, in that episode, I was talking about how we were talking to Craig and then or talking to Jim, and then you knew who he was and started pulling some of the photos. And I didn't tell all the stories because, some of them I'd love to have a conversation with Jim at some point to talk about
Yeah.
some of the behind the scenes secrets of his, some of the photos that they took. But
I think we got a lot of it that night in a nutshell, man. He was just burning it out.
he was.
It was cool though. Because remember I just instantly said Pratt jumps 5 vans, which I was quoting the Vans ad with him in it. And then he told us the details of Bob Osborne lying on the ground, shooting the Vans shoes laying in the dirt and all that. That was pretty rad because I had no idea.
So
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, because I mean now it'd be a Photoshop thing, right? But then
Yeah.
you're like, how did they do that? Because they look like the vans look like cars,
Yeah.
the van shoes, to explain what I'm talking about, looked full size, and he was jumping over them from a wooden ramp like Evil Knievel. He was
Yeah.
sports hero of the '70s.
Which is just so cool. So, yeah, so I am curious, how did you get into, because I'm sure this will tie into your fascination with jump and gym, but how did you get into BMX?
Well, I just explained the whole story. It's just evil Knievel, just like Jim Pratt, probably. When I was a kid, when I was young, like your dad's age, because I'm older than your dad, which is so funny to me. But Evil Knievel was like the thing. Like every single kid was into Evil Knievel. You're into Roger Staubach or whatever sports, which I was never into sports at all. I was like motorcycles and cars and stuff like that, and motorcycles and Evil Knievel and this dude's jumping stuff, and then of course that just naturally leads to jumping stuff on your bicycles, which is what we did. Sorry, I knew it was a little while ago. My voice was getting all weird. Oh, of course I'm supposed to talk to someone tonight. And this is not beer. This is ginger ale.
Oh,
I don't
well, I
drink beer.
mean, it could be. I wouldn't be offended,
I'm a teetotaler these
but
days.
but to be fair, this isn't a Dirty Knobs podcast, so or it's
No,
not beer
no, it's not.
budget, so
Right. I'll try to keep it clean. No, so I mean the evil thing, and then the that didn't go very well. Like this is like literally the first jump I hit was like a plastic snow toboggan on a cardboard box. Like it couldn't be a worse, couldn't be like a less structurally intact thing to try to ride a bicycle off. And I crashed and fell and like scraped up my arm. But then, I mean, really soon after that, we went at a different friend's house. There's always someone else. And funny enough, because I was never like this later on, but I was the first one to hit these jumps. And I wasn't really like Daredevil dude. I was just so excited to do it back then. Um, we did like the more traditional plank on a cement block, and I hit that and just went fully over the bars and landed on my face and got knocked out, completely knocked out, like seriously hurt, and don't and like woke up in my friend's living room, like which was pretty far. Like I live near where I live now, but out in the country, we are way down his driveway, and like I don't even remember. Like I still remember. It's just so crazy. I remember hitting that jump. I remember the sound of hitting that plank, and I remember like going like over the bars and kind of seeing it all like going behind me upside down. I remember that. I was 9. And then the next thing I remember, and I remember this very vividly too, even though it was 50 years ago almost. It was 50 years, which is insane. But like laying on his floor in like he had a really big family. My friend Doug, all of his sisters and mom, like all standing over me. And I was like, what is going on right now? And they were all like wide-eyed, like freaking out, you know. I think I was kind of, when you get knocked out, sometimes you're like kind of semi-conscious. Like I think I walked up there, but I don't remember. I have no recollection of that. When I really came to, I was in their living room. And my dad like totally forbid me for jumping like ever again. I was never allowed to leave the ground on my bike again. So when racing came along, 1977 here, we found out about this BMX track, and I'd kind of secretly been figuring out how to jump and everything because we're still this obsessed with Evil Knievel. This is peak Evil Knievel, 1970. Well, I say that. I think Evil Knievel was kind of done. I think his last big jump was in 1975. So, I mean, I'm going way back. So he was kind of done, but we were still excited. And then we found out about my friend Larry, my dear friend to this day, found out about this BMX track not far from here. And I kind of like my dad was, I don't know, my dad was great, but I was kind of intimidated by him. And I remember just trying to broach the BMX thing with him. Like, so there's this bike race. Like, he didn't know what BMX was, like no one knew what it was. Like, it wasn't like people still don't know. People now think when you tell them, right, they think you're talking about motorcycles or mountain bikes or whatever, right? It's still like that, I know. But imagine in the 70s when literally no one knew what you were talking
I just had a
about. I'm trying,
conversation with somebody yesterday who goes, "I thought BMX was a motorcycle." And I was like, "Well,
yeah,
no, no."
no, it's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I know it still goes on. But anyway, he agreed to it somehow, and he went because it was my friend Larry who he liked Larry a lot. And that helped me, like Larry's family and everything. It was kind of a whole family thing. We all went, or their family went, and my dad took me, and that was it. It was kind of on from there, which is awesome, because I was never I never played any sports or anything, and like was I don't know, just
Wow.
it was just defining moment for me. It was what I before I even knew what it was, I knew it was what I wanted to do. And as soon as I knew anything about it, like I still have it somehow because I don't have all my early magazines, but I have a couple. Maybe my mom had them or something. But I have this catalog I got, and I think I got it from. I think I ordered this paper catalog from Boys Life magazine, the Cub Scout Boy Scout magazine, because they had a little bit of BMX in there a couple times. It was on the cover of that one famous issue. Um, but I remember just having that like in school, and it's only like a 10-page catalog, and just like over and over again. But it has like red lines of those, like the bikes of the day. But that's from like 1976 probably.
Wow. That's
And
crazy.
then and right, so we started racing in May of 1977. So however many 40, it's 48 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But BMX Action magazine just started right then. Like the first issue came out in December of 76, so a few months earlier. So they were on issue 3 because we went to this bike shop the same week as that first race, and I got issue number 3 of Bicycle Motocross Action. So, that was it. And Larry, that same shop had issue 1 and 2, which he bought, and they were out of because they probably had 3 of each or something. You know what? Everything was so small scale back then. But
That's
and
crazy.
that's the magazine that Dale Holmes gave me at Dirty Fest last year. He posted, this guy Bill Prince had sent him all these magazines, and I don't know Dale that well, but I reached out to him like, hey, if you want to sell that one means a lot to me because I have issue 1 and 2, and issue 1 is back there on the wall. Um, it's a staple to the wall. Thumbtacks through it. No, it's in a frame. I'm just kidding. But I offered to buy it from him, but he just bought it. He gave it to me. It's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's neat.
So
So was
the magazine was such an important part of everything back then, because we didn't know what we were doing
yeah.
at all.
So was it then mostly racing, or did you start to at what point did you start to break dad's rules and start jumping and leaving
Well,
the
I mean,
ground?
well, the track had jumps on it, but they weren't. The track was so lame. It was at a motorcycle track. It was on a motorcycle track, and it just had these little jumps. You didn't leave the ground at all. And I think he saw that. Totally pedal powered, like no. It was funny because the first time I raced, you started like in the driveway, like that you drove in an hour earlier in the car. That's where you started. That was like the first straight of the BMX track. And then it just went on this kind of podunk trail. And then like the second time I raced, we started on a jump on the motorcycle track just because it was a hill. And then you roll down that. This was with a flag, mind you. A flag, not even a rubber band. And there were a lot of people there, like it was like real bikes, and you're envisioning like this Fred Flintstone thing where, we had
No,
leather leather
no.
football on and stuff, but people had real bikes, and people had, just crappy Stingrays and stuff too. That's what I'm gonna roll it over here and show you and blow your mind right now
Okay. Apparently
because
you've just got everything in your office.
I kind of do. Like if you went into our house otherwise, you would never even know anything existed about bikes. Oh my God, dude,
Oh,
this is so heavy.
wow.
This is called this is the orange version, but it's called the Silver Fox, and
Ooh.
it weighs about 55 pounds.
Okay.
But this isn't the one. This was a gift from my friend Jared Rathlick, but this is the very bike that I started racing on when I was 12. I probably 80 pounds, and it's full suspension. Look at the forks. Did you see the
Yeah.
forks?
They're amazing. They
They're
look like a downhill fork with automotive springs.
yeah, but they're so caveman. They have a they just have like pinched metal tabs over the springs holding the forks on. Like they're the sketchiest thing ever. It's total mini bike. I'm winded from like picking up the guy. That's why I started racing because we didn't know anyone. When I my friend Larry though, he and his brothers, his two brothers, they each got kind of an obscure brand called Matthews bikes that were like a Webco or whatever, a Matthews kind of. And they got theirs first, and then I got this for Christmas in 1976, and they were like, "Oh, this bike is so cool! We should have got shock bikes." I remember that was a quote because that was fun to bounce around on. But when the races started a few months later, and I'm just bringing up the rear on that thing, and they all won. They both won their race. Two of them raced, and they both won their race, the very first race. We kind of
That's cool.
established what was more competitive. But
Did you ever I don't know if you listened to the first episode I did with Paul DePaul, but he talks about like
I
starting
meant to.
he talks about it's okay. I wasn't that sorry, that wasn't supposed to be a loaded question. But he talks about
I'm
the
really
way that
sorry, Jay.
the way that he got into BMX racing was that he had like like I think a Huffy or something, and he went with his dad to a crit race, and he was on a BMX
Oh
bike
wow,
in a crit race, and that was his first time, and he like I mean got smoked because he was not on a road bike, but that was his introduction to racing.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, very
Yeah,
different.
that
So
is.
it's which I think is super cool. It's a something where there's so many different stories. I mean, there are people that start on a race bike and then there are people that start on almost anything else and
Yeah.
you can have some cool stories regardless. So,
Well, my stories are, I mean, this could all be crazy stories of the bikes because that was the first race and instantly like, okay, that thing's not competitive. Like it weighs 55 pounds. The suspension absorbs every pedal stroke. Like it's horrible. So the next race, I had this book and this book is from, I wish I had one. I've tried to find it. It's called How to Win Bicycle Motocross and it's from 1974. So it's before they even really made BMX bikes. Like everything in the book is like how to modify your Schwinn Stingray, or there were like a couple brands of bikes that were just starting to emerge. It's so crazy to even like talk about this because it seems like it had to be 100 years ago, even though it was. I mean, it was 50 years ago, but like the big BMX products were like cross handlebars with crossbars, which every handlebar has crossbars now, and like pads and fenders and like plastic gas tanks. I have a plastic gas tank. I wish it was in here. I know it's pretty amazing, but I mean that those were like the accessories you bought to make your Schwinn Stingray or your Huffy or whatever a BMX bike. Like that's what it was. But in that book, it showed you how to raise the bottom bracket of your bike to accommodate longer cranks because like a Schwinn Stingray,
they're like 4.5 inches.
they're like 4.5 inches. So if you put longer cranks off your sister's 10 speed or whatever, which is the mod, the pedals would hit the ground. So you had to raise the bottom bracket. And that's a whole, like, that's not an easy, garage fab, which is exactly what my dad and I did. And he, like, I remember because my dad could weld, which is so funny because this was such a failure. My dad was a machinist and he could weld and like he was a gunsmith. Like he would make like beautiful guns and like they were works of art. But modifying that Huffy bike to be a better BMX bike did not go well. I remember him working on it. Oh, this damn thing is brazed. Like the Huffies they were super cheaply made and they're brazed together instead of welding. So you can't, if something's brazed, and I know, like I think about this now, and like it's not that hard to like grind all the brass off because the brass contaminates a weld if you try to weld it, right? So it's a whole thing. So he brazed instead of welding the bottom bracket higher and cut all these tubes, he brazed it and wasn't very good at brazing, I don't think. And it just the bike totally just broke in half. Like I remember pedaling it and it just like folded to the ground, not jumping or anything. Like I was just like, but I did race it. I did successfully race it a couple times. And the next race, the very next week, I got third place on that crappy Huffy
Oh
with the
wow.
weirdest, like the geometry was already fake Stingray Huffy, so it was already bad. But then it was like chopper head tube with a high bottom bracket. It was a mess. But then that broke in half, completely unusable. Then I raced my sister's like girls bike. It was ridiculous. And then I got a real bike after that. Anyway, anyone
That's
that
cool.
knows me be bored of this story because they've heard it before. But to you, I like telling a story like this to you because it's like unfathomable probably because it seems made up. Like there's no way that really, but I
Yeah.
didn't really have it that bad. Like my dad was all about my dad. I told you he was a gunsmith, so he had a resale tax license, so he could figure out. He would always find like a distributor to sell to him. So when I was 12, he made me call this distributor and order parts because they were for me and for my friends, but that's really all it was. And the guy on the phone was like, "How old are you?" I was like 12. Like he was just calling me out. He's like, "Are you just ordering this for you and your friends?" I'm like, "No, we have a shop." I had this kind of scripted line. And I can't believe the dude sold to us, but he did. But I got Roger DeCoster forks, which are mongoose forks, and I remember what I ordered. And
That's awesome.
got a frame from this other motorcycle distributor that he already had an account with where he ordered stuff for his Honda 750. Like it was all kind of, it was pretty. I think about it in terms of like modern BMX and like the gripes about modern racing or like try to be profitable as a company. And I'm not speaking for the current company or anything that I work for. I just mean in general, because the complaint, like shops don't want to sell BMX racing stuff because you can go to the track and buy stuff out of someone's van. Like there's vendors at the track. That's who you're competing with, or it's always at a discount. And I subscribe to that too. And I know that's not healthy for the business of BMX, but my dad was doing that in 1977, like it's like, wow, we just straight out of the gate. Like he just defaulted to that. And that wasn't because someone else was doing it. He was just like, well, I can sell this stuff at the track. You're selling stuff out of the trunk of his car, literally. And it later evolved into like, eventually my dad had a retired bakery truck, like a van, like a UPS sized truck, like a full delivery truck that was totally outfitted with all these racks and these tables that folded out to vend. And he had a full-time job. Like he was a machinist for 40 hours a week, third or second shift. But on the weekend, he would go to the BMX races and sell tons of stuff. Like it was viable business for quite a few years, which
Wow.
is pretty crazy because I don't know, like he uh he was just all in, which was great for me because I was going to the races. He wanted to go anyway because you know, we never did anything really together because again, I didn't do sports or anything, and he didn't like he was into shooting. Like I would go to we shoot clay pigeons or whatever, shooting skeet, I guess it's called, right?
Okay.
I wasn't into that, but he would kind of drag me to that kind of stuff. But with racing, he was into it and saw how I was into it, and then it was something for him. So it just worked out for both of us.
That's cool.
Yeah. The other thing I think about with racing, the other complaint about like modern racing, or it's been kind of all along. I was thinking about this is like a kid races, goes to the race, 12-year-old kid, and he sees that everyone's sponsored, or his parents see that everyone's sponsored, so he has to have a sponsor. He has to be on a team, right? Like that's it, like right away. And again, that's the thing that doesn't seem that healthy. It just doesn't seem like it should be that way. It's not because that's not really what it's about. But I do understand it because everyone wants to belong to something. You want to be part of something, and I get that. But then I think back to my own experience, and it was the same. Like I was sponsored. And keep in mind, my this what I just told you about my dad is already selling stuff at the races, and I was sponsored by Cycle City, the local bike shop, and I don't think we never bought anything from them because my dad would order it. But I was on the Cycle City team for a minute. I had the jersey, a cool jersey I probably paid for, but just because I wanted to be on that team, and it didn't even mean anything. Like, I didn't even buy anything from them. Like, they weren't paying like entry fees or anything like that. Of course, no one expected them to, but I don't know. So I just when I was thinking about this, and I think that occurred to me just kind of randomly because I have all these weird thoughts milling around in my brain. But um, like those two problems have just been there all along. Like I'm myself and my own father are guilty of like uh, two of those big things that are still like kind of stumbling blocks in BMX racing, that you have to be on a team, everything's sold at a discount, you ride its track, like the business side of BMX racing is tough, and I know it is. And then the keeping people involved and keeping people excited about BMX. And part of that is like you're on a team, but then there's pressure to be on the team and perform to contribute to the team. And that's a
Yeah.
thing too, And I don't know. It doesn't I don't know how healthy that is, but maybe it's just a natural thing because when you're again, you want to belong.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Hollywood Mike Miranda from the BMX Breakthrough Oh, no, 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 I'm sorry. From the Dirty Knobs podcast. If you love BMX like we love BMX, then you need to get to Dirty Fest, June 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's where we celebrate all great things BMX. It's the big BMX family reunion. Again, June 6th, 7th, and 8th in Temecula, California. For more information, go to www.dirtyfest.com. Hey.
BMX racing, I think one of the issues that I see is that people it becomes so exclusive in the
Hmm.
sense of walking in. It took me a really long time to find community in the BMX track when I came into it. And when you walk into it with an outside perspective and people go, "Oh, like these are the best people in the world. This is where our best friends are at. This is where all of our community is." Well, yeah, because you have built that. But do
Yeah.
outsiders feel that way?
No, it's super inclusive. It's
It it's super
elitist and
hard to get into.
clicky. It's like high school. It's
And then people end up one of the reasons. So if you talk about growth of the sport, in order for the sport to grow, we all know that the absolute best form of marketing, hands down, is word of mouth, is
Mhm.
referral. And the reason that doesn't work in as a business model is because you can't control when somebody talks about you, but it's still the
Right.
best form of marketing. So in order for the BMX track to grow, the best thing to happen is for people to invite, but they end up spending so much time within their own club that they don't actually know anybody outside that doesn't ride BMX that they could invite. So then it just
Right.
becomes that circle, and then there's natural attrition, which then causes a trickle off, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what happened to all of our people? So,
Right. No, I experienced that. When I was so gung ho about BMX, so into it. Like, I know it was the same year that I started racing. Like, I built a little track at my house, and like three of my friends on my same street, and keep in mind we live out in the country. We're not even right next to each other. We had little tracks at our houses, like in the yards, which is kind of crazy to think. Um, but I remember this really well. Like I somehow got five of my friends to come over to ride BMX bikes. And it was a big deal because no one lived close. Like everyone had to be driven over, you know, and we're 12 and we had little BMX races and I won because I was already racing BMX and I was so serious about it. It wasn't like I was great at BMX or anything, but I was better than my friends. And one of them raced a couple times at the real track. We had a track in our town that Larry, I keep talking about. His family started that track in 1978. But my friend Rob raced like twice, and none of those other kids ever raced. Maybe one of them did once, and then they were just done, and that was it. And there was no. It's kind of to your point, like, man, you're either into it or you're not into it. Like, you can't make somebody be into something just because you're into it, which is what I was trying to do with them. Like, how can you not like this as much as me? I remember my having that conversation as an adult with my friend Sol, and he was talking about this guy we were trying to get. Like, we're really encouraging him, like helping him get a bike built, and, like taking him to the skate park, and you could tell it just wasn't sticking. But that's as an adult too. But for a kid, like if you're not into it or if it's not if it's not doing it for you, then you're not going to do it. Like, why would you do it? Like, you're going to get hurt. Like, it's not that fun. If you're not having fun, there's no reason to do it. It's not like your parents are going to, it's not like you're on a little league team and your parents are going to make you finish the season or whatever. It's like BMX race. It's what are we doing? Where are we going all day Sunday?
Yeah.
Like, so
Well, and I think part of the difficulty too is that so an owner of an industry company is I was talking to him, and his claim is that and I don't think he has any reason to make this up. I don't know if the numbers are 100% accurate, but he said that the average USA BMX membership is 2 years, which the downside to that is obviously that it's only 2 years. Let's just say it's a little bit longer. Let's say it's 3 years. But even so, that's not very long because my goal is lifelong love of the sport, lifelong love
yeah,
of riding bikes. So regardless, let's just double it and stretch it to 4. Still not very long.
no,
And what that tells me is that there's a lot of people that are getting into it, and then to be accepted into this club, then I'm saying, Scott, well, you got to be here on for this state race this weekend. You got to be at
yeah,
the race 15 miles, 100 miles down the road tomorrow night. You got to be here, and then people start living vicariously through their kids, and we all know that. They start living
yeah, yeah,
vicariously, and they start saying, well, you got to win, you got to do this, and they're only
yeah,
doing that to earn love.
right.
And I don't know that many people are going to want to admit that, but
No, of course not. But the kid doesn't. I mean, that's a broken formula. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for long.
well, and I will
It's
say
so
that
much
there
pressure on a kid, and like, I mean, your kids play sport, any other sports?
no, not right now.
Yeah.
Oliver wants
See,
to learn how to play basketball. She's been talking a little bit about soccer. Um, but at this point, I was just gonna say that at this point we'll go to the BMX track, and I love racing with my kids. But there are days when we get there, and I'll go, Oliver, you want to race? And he goes, no. And as much as I really want him to, because I want to race with him and I
right.
want to see him participate, I very intentionally go, okay, well, do you want to go ask if you can help hand out trophy slips? Do you want to go and do you want to just go sit with your mom and hang out with her while she takes pictures, or what do you want to do? And he's like, I'll just hang out. And we've gotten there, and my daughter's done the same thing. And I try to be really supportive with it, because the last thing I want is, well, we go to the track, but dad makes us race.
Yeah, of course. Like, who wants to do that? Like,
Yeah,
that's,
exactly.
I mean, you're the exception to the rule, unfortunately, with that, I'm sure. So I only asked about other sports because that, as a parent now, and my kids are both, my younger son just turned 18 and my other son is 19, but they both played sports. Noah played soccer from age 4. He still plays on a rec league. Like his whole life, he's played soccer. He loves soccer. He's a super good skateboarder. But soccer, he played club, he played ASO, club soccer, high school soccer. Now he plays adult rec league soccer. And it's just because he loves playing soccer. But there's never any pressure from us to like, you know, be better or be worse or anything. And I think, and I'm not crediting us, it was just like we just saw that how much he cared about it and supported him. Um, and I only bring that up because I always just would think about BMX when I'm going to, club soccer. We're traveling all over like BMX. It did make me appreciate soccer because soccer game lasts an hour and a half or BMX racing. Anytime I go, I'm like, oh, 7 hours. But but they both raced BMX a little, a couple of times, naturally, like I'm gonna take them to the BMX track. And neither one, it just did not stick. And I can tell you with my younger son, I'm not sure why it didn't. He was never really wanting to do it anyway. But with Noah, my older son, the first time he raced, he got fourth place. He got trophy, or no, he got second place. He got trophy. But then he would never have a class. And I know this is part of the problem across the board, right? At a local race, you have he was 6. you take your 6-year-old, and if there's no 6-year-olds, he races the 8-year-olds, and he's racing the 8-year-old experts and the intermediates, and he's like a novice, like barely standing up, like just getting smoked by a straightaway and a half every race is not. And I don't know what the fix for that is because you have to have the participants there to fix that. There's nothing the track can do to make that different. You can't let the kid race around the track by himself. I don't know what the
Yeah.
fix. There is no easy fix for that, but it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy there, right? Like you have to have participants to
And
keep
unfortunately,
participants.
yeah, that's like a huge multi-year investment
Yeah,
in order to get bigger classes.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's kind of the same thing for me too. Like as I got older, I'm like, I don't. There was a point where probably in my 40s where I would like have a good class and it was fun. But then I kind of started aging out. Oh, dude, I'm just racing like the super old dudes and like there'd be three of us and that's not that fun. But then I wouldn't show up, so now there's two of them. I'm part of the,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I don't
and
know. I don't know how to fix any of those problems.
so one of the things that I was thinking is absolutely fascinating. I was actually started from a conversation that my dad had with Barry Nilsson at Frogtown this last year. Barry was just talking about the number of days, sorry, the number of riders at the Orange Y, and
Hmm.
how there were so many riders. Guys wouldn't get home until 2 o'clock in the morning. Him and his
Oh
parents,
yeah.
and they'd be riding. Super exciting. Well, they would only race though every other weekend. And so it got me thinking like, okay, we have most tracks race two, maybe three times a week. So
Hmm.
what happens is I go to one race and let's say, for example, that you and I are in the same class. I go to this Saturday, you go to next Saturday. I go to the
Right.
next Saturday, you go to the following one. Well, if it was two times a week, or sorry, if it was two weekends a month, you and I would go, okay, the first weekends of the month are family or vacation or whatever, or soccer or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, but then the next time, there's a good chance that you and I are there on the same night.
Right.
And so there's a part of me that wonders if we're racing too much, and by actually racing less, if you would open up the opportunity to have bigger classes
Hmm.
and maybe you'll lose a few dollars in membership or in maybe not membership but maybe entry fees in the big picture, but how much cooler would it be? There are times when I just won't go race because I'm like, I don't know if they're going to be there anyway. But if the reality
Right.
was that
That was
every
my
other
point. Like,
Saturday, yeah, every other Saturday, I'm like, no, Scott's going to be there. He's always there.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and vice versa. You go, Jay's always there. I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and from the track's perspective, if they're only there once a week, they don't have the lights on, or they're not running the gate, or they're not. I mean, I know no one's paid there, but like it's their time. Like no one wants to stand there for 4 hours for 8 motos. Like, and I know that's how it works a lot of places, a lot of times. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, and I'm not being critical of USA BMX or anyone. Of course, it's becomes critical of them because they're the only sanctioning body. But like the Gold Cup thing, like there's so many things, and you were kind of alluding to this a little while ago, but like there's so many different levels. And you just have to be, if you're going to be competitive, if you're going to get the plate or whatever, the status, you have to go to all those races, and it's so much money and it's so much time. And like, I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people like take off work for, like leave Thursday and come, miss Monday and just, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
there aren't that many independently wealthy people. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how so many people do it. I know some people can, do it, but I mean,
And
I work for a
it's
bike company. I couldn't get away. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I really love like I really appreciate USA BMX. I'm not, I told somebody the other day I was talking to about the podcast and everything, and I go, The focus of my podcast at all is not talking about the politics within BMX. I'm not interested in
Mm-mm.
having that conversation because the reality is I appreciate what they're doing. Nobody else is doing anything. They're doing
No,
something. They're allowing me to race. They're allowing me to race with my kids.
yeah,
And I think that's cool. And I mean, absolutely any company you can start to nitpick, and it's really easy to armchair quarterback anything that happens.
especially when
And
there's only one.
yeah, and then it's really easy for anybody to go, "Oh, I could do that better." Yeah, but you're not.
Yeah, of
Like,
course, but you're not,
and
and you can't, and you won't.
and
And
so
there's only one for a reason. The other ones all went away, or they were absorbed by the ABA, or NBL was the last one. The NBL was great, but it wasn't great enough. Like people freak out for me saying this out loud, but it just couldn't sustain. Like they didn't just give it up for fun. They didn't just like walk away because they were killing it. They didn't stop the NBL. The NBL didn't merge with the ABA because it was doing so great on its own. You
yeah,
know,
but the reality is that it's a place that we can go and ride bikes. And what I really love talking about is the stories that you brought up, the reminiscing about the days of BMX and whether that was whether that was the 70s or 80s or 90s or 2000s, like, or even for the like my kids racing now. My kids are in their good old days
yeah, right.
of riding bikes. And so regardless of when that is, those are the stories that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the love that people have for the sport. And anyway, you know, it's not always the conversation that people want to have, but
Yeah.
I'm not interested in getting into all the negative stuff. There's already
No,
enough
not
of that. I don't need to be that.
yeah. I'm not going to be that guy. And I mean, I have opinions, but no one needs to hear them about a lot of stuff with modern racing and the way it is.
At this time, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to our 2025 sponsors who are helping us make the mission of BMX Breakthrough happen, which is to grow the sport at a local level. These sponsors, you can find more about them in the description, and then you can use their coupon codes. And you may be saying, I don't need a coupon code, but I would ask you, please use that coupon code as a way to help us all track what we're doing together. It helps them, it helps us, it helps everyone. So at our gold level, we have Box, Mongoose, and Pro Lids. At the silver level, we have Dan's Comp, LRC, and Pro Start. And at the bronze level, we have Command Aviation, Danger Snacks, Fly Racing, Gear Blocks, Justin Shepard Title Examiner, Lincoln Park BMX, Sign Dog Northwest, Sound Cedar Lumber, and Tasco. Once again, you can follow the links in our description to find out more about these phenomenal brands. You can find the coupon codes for some of them available there. And thank you so much to our 2025 sponsors. Now back to our episode.
But I will say this, like people are talking about the good old days, BMX and everything, but a lot of the tracks in the good old days, because those are the tracks I came up on, were terrible. Like that first track I talked about was literally like the first couple races was cool, and then it was like a path. Like no one took care of this course. Like it was like a trail, and you got a trophy, and it was fun, but holy cow.
But it's really
But
easy to romanticize things that don't exist anymore because there's no
oh yeah,
evidence that it
right.
was bad. You remember it how you want to remember it.
Yeah, it was fun and you enjoyed it. And I think about this too, and I'm in no way suggesting that this should happen. But my local track, Plainwell BMX, which if you saw the town where I live, it's crazy. It's a tiny, tiny town. But there's a thriving BMX track there for 7 years. Um, when it started in 1978. So when it first started, it wasn't sanctioned. The NBL was around, like the tracks in Indiana, like an hour away, not far from here, were NBL tracks, I think. Maybe they might not have even been yet. But tracks weren't sanctioned, and that's the point I'm getting to. This track wasn't sanctioned at all. It was just a track. I don't think it really had insurance, which you just couldn't do that now. But I remember when it became an ABA track, probably it must have been 1980. It's going to be ABA track. And that was a really big deal. And people, a lot of people quit. Like they were done. It was too serious now. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Because I was all in on BMX, But it kind of did, it became more like a sport, like an athletic event because it's sanctioned and now there's rules and there's points. And you're like, oh, huh. I can't just use whatever number I want on my number plate. You had I was number 104, but that was the number. It was chronological. Like I was the 104th rider to sign up for the ABA in Michigan District 3. That's why I was number 104. Just kind of funny.
That's cool.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe it probably started at 50. So I was the 54th
Okay.
because they wouldn't start at,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
number one
'cause
signing up
nobody
because
does.
your
Yeah.
kid, because you're the track operator. First
Yeah.
one that had the, so your kids are number one, two, and three.
So, did you have your kids racing? Did your kids ever race?
Just a little, just those couple times
Okay. Yeah,
that I
but
talked
nothing
about. Like,
beyond that.
no.
Okay.
And they, with Noah, my oldest son, he raced that first time and it was fun and he was into it. And then he went back and then he raced maybe three more times. And it was the same thing where he was like, this is an indoor track in Greenville that was super fun. I'm super bummed that it went away because it was a blast. And it was like an hour away. It was pretty close. Um, but yeah, I think he raced like a race for life once after that. And then my younger son Dylan raced a couple times, but he was just never that into it. And they rode
Gotcha.
bikes, like we'd go to the skate park and they would kind of switch off between bikes and skateboards. And when I look at my Facebook memories, always pictures or video of them riding bikes, and man, it's crazy because they were having fun, like they're little kids, so they were just doing whatever's fun.
Yeah.
But
No, it's cool. It seems like you still have pictures of you guys going to the skate park and um playing around on skateboards or whatever. And I think even um I think BMX and skateboarding, there are just naturally a lot of similarities in kind of the
oh yeah,
lifestyle of it. But I think it's super cool because it's still an independent sport. It's still something that you can do to whatever degree you want to. You can
right,
be no good and still have a good time doing it. You can be really good and still have a good time doing it, and
yeah.
anywhere in between.
And it's like you were talking about being able to do it with your kids. Like there are not many things that I am 60 years old. Okay, let's say 10 years ago, let's say 15 years ago, when my kid was 5 and I was 45 or however that works, we go to the skate park and I could skate and he could, well, let's say when he was 12 and he can actually do it, not like a little kid fumbling around, but a kid that's actually skating. And then I'm actually skating or riding my bike. And that is totally accepted, cool, celebrated, not weird. No one's looking at you weird. Or it's awesome. Like it's as it should be. And they're racing the same way when you go there with your kids. You can't, there's not many activities like that. You can't, like, I'm not gonna go to the soccer field and like hop on the field and, you know, play in the same league as my 19-year-old kid. I mean, I
No,
guess I could if there's a 20 and over league or whatever, but
no,
certainly not when he was 12. I couldn't do that, like,
yeah.
nor would you want to. Like, you'd be like, someone call the police,
But the fact that
but there's,
my dad, myself, and my children can go out on the same night and race and ride the
yeah,
same track at the same time,
yeah,
and for we go out for practice and play around, and then we can go out and have our individual motos, and then
absolutely.
it,
Yeah,
it's a really cool, really unique sport, and I think everything that I always come back to is just the values that it teaches to kids, the characteristics, the things that they
yeah.
have the ability to learn. Um,
The one thing I do think about, like with my son Noah, he's a super, super good skater, and he still skates all the time. But like comparing it to like BMX or BMX racing, not freestyle BMX. It's kind of the same as that. But there's really like you might enter a couple contests a year, but they're like one-time deals. Like there's the skate park's having a contest, they're having a jam, and we'll go to that and he'll enter. But that's kind of it. Like there's nothing on the schedule. It's not goal based besides learning new tricks or, like skating some new terrain or going to different parks. Like that's part of the fun of it and the adventure aspect that we love because there's always new skate parks being built and opening. So that's a really cool part of it. But there isn't like we're racing, there's too much of it. Like it's all about the points and accumulating points and the low plate number and all that. Like something like skateboarding, there's none of that. It's at all. Like, I mean, you might aspire to get sponsored or something, but even that, like in Kalamazoo, Michigan, like that's not, you might get a couple pairs of shoes or a board from some company or something, but it's not going to amount to much. And you're just a level dude that, you know, goes beyond your local scene.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that affects him personally, but like freestyle BMX is kind of the same thing. Like you're just doing it because you like to do it. There's not a goal. I'm not talking, again, I'm not dragging USA BMX through the mud because thank God for them actually having a series because if you're an aspiring freestyle BMX rider before the USA BMX series started, like there's nothing, unless you're like super high level, like fees or whatever. You're gonna fly to Estonia or like not not at all achievable goals, so um but it's kind of the same problem there. Like you're only doing it because it's fun and because it's accessible. And for me, for BMX, I loved it because I could do it by myself. Like I wanted to play baseball and I could throw a ball to myself. Like this is pathetic, but I would throw the ball on the roof and wait for it to come back so I could catch it. Like that was my version of playing catch. That's some loner status right there.
Yeah.
But BMX is not. BMX is like just doing it by myself all week until I got to the racetrack or with my friends, preferably with my friends, but I would do it by myself all the time. And I still do.
But
More so by myself now than ever.
yeah, but going and riding bikes with your friends improves it for the camaraderie for the accountability, stuff like that. But it doesn't
Uh-huh.
actually like change the game of it. It
No,
doesn't actually, I mean, you might have that peer pressure, and so it might actually make you a little bit better, but
you push each other. Yeah.
you can't get better at catch by yourself.
No, not
It's
at all.
it's not gonna work.
No.
And yeah, so I think that it's just something that's one of the reasons that you and I got to know each other at the old school events between Dirty Fest and Frogtown, and being at those events, which is really fun. But it's just a bunch of guys that like enjoy playing around on their bikes.
Yeah, it's
And
literally what it is.
I mean, people that would tell very similar stories to what you have to tell or what I have to
Yeah,
tell. And
sure.
now they're going out on their bike. And for the most part, unless, I mean, there's a couple of people that take it super seriously, but everybody's there to just go ride their bike down a hill that they maybe haven't done in 20, 30, 40 years.
Right. And which is why they want to do it. And then once they do it a couple times, are they going to keep doing it? I don't know how sustainable that is either, Like for me, like ah, that's the only kind of racing I've done in years. Like I went, I have you saw that bike, that Haro sample race bike, that chromoly race bike. It's all me. It's like if I was going to design a race bike and I didn't design it. My friend Kevin, the product manager at Haro, designed it and I helped him. I gave him a lot of input on it. But if there was a race bike for me, that's it. And I have it in my possession. It's built up, ready to go. There's an indoor track. My wife is out of town, which she doesn't care if I go either way. But like, like it was like, I mean, I'm always going places. But she wasn't. My point is like, I just kind of have no big deal. So I went to the skate park. I met up with my friend. It was a beautiful day, and I took one lap around the skate park on my skateboard, just rolling around. I'm like, I'm not going to that race. I just because it was indoors, which it had to be indoors. It was March. There's no the outdoor tracks are not open yet. I'm like, I'm just gonna stay here. And I did. Stayed at the skate park. I never even went to the track. I had my helmet, like updated my helmet, like my number plate, like my membership is intact, ready to go. And I would, I can't pretend to be excited about something. I was excited to go to the race,
Yeah.
but part of it was being cooped up all. We had a long winter, I live in the snow belt, and it was a long winter, and the weather just kind of just broken. And I'm like, my friend was there, and I was having a good time with him, and he would have gone to the track too, but he wouldn't have raced, and he did start rolling around at the skate park. But
Well, and
um,
to that point, what is bringing you joy? What is bringing you excitement?
yeah,
And because you can still play around on your bike or your skateboard at the skate park, but
yeah,
it's just like when my kids get to the track and they say they don't want to race. So if I would have
right,
been there and said, "No, Scott, you have to race,"
yeah, I would have been like, what?
what does
But
that do? Or
yeah,
like if I guilt tripped you in, like, well, Scott, I'm here, like we're here to race. We're
yeah, we
gonna
spent all this
go.
money. That happens. Like,
Yeah,
you know how
and
much
it's
this cost me? You know how much that bike costs? Of course
exactly.
that
And then
happens. And it's not right, but it happens.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, then it's like, well, fine, I won't get ready to go next time. Like,
Right.
sorry for building up your expectations, and
Yeah,
maybe kids aren't quite as articulate thinking through the reality of their subconscious and how it affects them, but
sure.
that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, I've done it to my kids and my wife. Um, where you're doing something for them, but it's really for you. Like you're so excited for them to do something because you want to do it, or be. I mean, that's the super selfish version, but you just think they're gonna think it's great. Like I did this for you. Why aren't you as excited about it as I am? Right? It's what we were talking about a little bit ago, and that's definitely true for that, for the racetrack, and maybe for you if you're that into it and you just want your kids to be into it, but you can't make anyone be into anything, if they don't care that much, or if you're putting the pressure on them, those are two different things. But I don't know. I don't know how this applies to making BMX healthier, growing, or anything else. But
No, but if I could, I don't know. I think sometimes the conversation is if I could encourage parents to just let their kid compete at whatever level they want to or at whatever
yeah,
um, depth they want to,
yeah,
and to be able to go and there was a side of me the other day that we went to the track and we got there and Oliver said, I just want to practice. And I was like, well, we're here. Why wouldn't you race? And there was a part of me that like kind of wanted to push for it. And then I decided I checked myself and was like, no, we're not going to do that because we'll see if he wants to. He ended up changing his mind on his own. But I don't know why it mattered to me.
well, you know why it mattered to you, but again, you're the exception to the rule, because most parents would have been like, no, you're racing, damn
Yeah.
it, like this is why we're here. I don't know. That's some parent-child psychology stuff that we'll never be able to overcome, but I don't I don't know.
Well
It's a
then,
weird one. I think with my kids, part of the BMX thing, I think as they got older, and I'm not saying I'm a great rider or anything, but like they just weren't going to be as good as me. Like, and I wasn't going to like, I'm not competing with my kids at all, but, and they weren't like outwardly competing with me, but I think probably in their minds, they're like, well, this sucks when your dad is like, not that I'm great BMX dude, but like very capable. We'll say that at least, It's like, well, that's not fun. Like, I want to be the cool one, not him. Like, I get
yeah,
that. No, that's not anything they've ever said or anything, but got to think that's probably part of it. When
yeah,
Noah, like, really, like, skateboarding really kicked in, I just never see in this where maybe just kind of fortifies my theory. Because I'm not a great skater. and he's way better. He's 100 times better than I ever was, but he got better than me pretty quickly. I'm like, oh, awesome, And again, I wasn't competing with him. I was like, all right, let's do this, dude, and just it's all encouragement. But then you have the two kids like that get along great, but then my younger son like didn't want to go to skate park or anything anymore, and he used to love to. Like he wanted to go more when he was real little, and then I think then you're like, well, that's his thing. I'm gonna find my thing, and then they find their thing, you know.
Yeah.
But and you just show them our theory. My wife and I were just like, you want to try soccer? You want to try baseball? You want to try this? You got to try something. Um, and you don't if you don't like it, don't do it. We're not going to make you do it, you know. But you got to
Well,
do something. That was always
well,
like if you quit soccer, what are you going to do? You got to do something. You can't just sit around playing video games because you can do that a lot of the time, but you can't do that all the time.
I like your thought on that because I don't know. I think that kids thrive on learning to do something and doing it really well, and
Hmm.
that's what they want to do. And to your point, like I don't remember a whole lot of times in my life where I was necessarily accredited for doing anything better than the people around me. Like I want my kids to excel. I know that they'll have skills and abilities that I won't have, but I don't know that as a kid I was ever like given nobody ever made mention of like, oh, hey, you're better at that than I am. Like,
Right.
any of the authorities in my life, they would never say that because they were always better at whatever it was than me. And even to this point, like I have a lot of conversations with people that I'm like, no, like I just can't be better than you at anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that I look for those things. One of the things that I was thinking about the other day is that my son, one thing that I am envious of his ability to do is relax. I am
Mm.
so bad at relaxing, and my son is better than anyone in my entire family at just like sitting there and just being okay with being still. And
That's awesome. I can't imagine what that's like.
it's it's a skill, and he's just content. Like he'll just sit next to you and he'll just be fine, or he'll sit by himself and just play, and he's okay with, and I'm not okay with the quiet. I try, I'm working at it, but I want to recognize, man, he's so good at that. Or
Yeah, that's
my daughter's
huge.
ability to remember things. And so finding those things, it doesn't matter what it is, but I think that we're all looking for something that we are good at.
Yeah.
And whether it's conscious or subconscious, I don't know if it was your kids looking for something that they could be better at than dad, but it's we all want recognition.
Yeah. I don't think they
So,
cared about being better than me at anything in particular, but they knew they weren't going to
no.
be better. It was going to be a lot of effort to be better than me on the bike. That's the one. That's the only thing I'm talking about. Because
Yeah.
that doesn't apply to anything else in our lives. Like they're smart, they're super athletic. Like it's so awesome. Like I just love watching them play sports or like my younger son's a track or he does the high jump. I'm like in awe of him. It's amazing. It's just stuff I never could do or did do or was encouraged to do or anything. So it's huge. But
And I
that's what you just want. Like for me, for BMX, for me, and this I'm sure is part of why it was so important because it was the first thing that I was kind of good at, and I wasn't even necessarily good at it at first, but I was okay. It was better than all my friends around here, you know. Like I won the first race at the Plainwell BMX track when it opened. That was my second year racing. That was a big deal, and it wasn't like my friends from school. There was a couple kids from school, but it was kids from the area. I don't know how they found out about it back then. But it was a big lot of people there, and you know, but that was my thing, and it stayed my thing, and it's still my thing, which is kind of crazy. And I don't even know if that's healthy at this point. Like, it's still the thing I want to do more than anything else is ride a BMX bike, not a bike, not a mountain bike, not a road bike, a BMX bike, specifically a BMX bike. I am 60 years old. That's what I want to do every single day, and I do every single day. And
That's
I
cool.
did tonight. It was raining. I rode this little mini ramp in our barn, and it was fun by myself, listening to music.
I
But
love
I
that.
don't, but it's what you're into, like you started racing as a little kid and then you came back to it. Why did you come back to it? Because you want to do it with your kids or you thought they might like it? I think that's how a lot of adults come back to BMX, right? They
Yeah.
take their kids to the track because it's something they did.
Yeah, I mean, I was just introducing my kids to it, and I thought, oh, this was fun as a kid. And I remember going to races. I remember really enjoying it. When I stopped racing, I really didn't ever have a desire to start racing again. Like
Hmm.
it was just like a water faucet that had completely shut off, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
this valve was off, and I almost never thought about it again. And I went out to the track once in that 20-year period. And it was like, oh, it was cool, but it just wasn't enough of a priority to ever try doing again. And then
Yeah.
I brought my kids into it and I immediately saw my daughter's competitive edge come out, and she was immediately talking about the racing and fueled by it and driven by it. And then I immediately saw my son having the best time, and I've said for years he has more fun than anyone else on the track because it doesn't matter how he finishes. He's got a massive smile on his face and he is having a better time than you are. Like,
That's awesome.
and so I just started seeing these things that my kids were learning, and then I started watching the character traits and characteristics that I had that my wife would ask me like, where do you get that from? Where did you learn that from? And I would always say, I don't know. Like, I literally have no idea. I just have always done that. And then we started watching our kids in BMX, and she goes, oh, that's why you do that. And so I saw those things happening with my kids at 4 and 5 years old and going, oh, this sport is way more beneficial than I ever realized. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's
But
awesome. But yeah, see, that's a super healthy outlook. And your kid smiling and not caring how he finishes, like that's awesome. But how many kids like I can't imagine a full gate of kids just like smiling and cruising around the track, like popping, like pulling up extra hard over the rollers.
yeah. Oh, and that's what he's doing now. I keep watching him jump around the track. And the other day let's see, we went out to one of the state races down in Yukon, Oklahoma, and which is near Oklahoma City. And we went to it was the Friday night race before, and I'm watching him that night, and he gets done, and I said, and you were just having the best time out there. Were you jumping everything? And he like looks all sheepishly and he's like, yeah. And he
That's
was
awesome.
literally, I was just watching him pull up on every single roller that he went off of, and he's loving it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think he got third out of four people, and I'm like, he's killing it. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So
But he's having fun riding his bike. So, but see, that's where like not that you would approach it any differently, but is that sustainable for him? Is that going to be fun for indefinitely, for 5 years? How old is he now?
7, almost 7.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So still talking about young kids.
Yeah.
Like when he's 12, he's still gonna want to do that. I don't know. I'm not your
Yeah.
kids, and it
And,
doesn't matter to me. I hope he does. I hope it's still that fun for him when he's 27 or
well,
17.
and I
But
think I totally saw an opportunity to get upset with him at that in that moment of going, you need to take this
yeah,
seriously. We paid for you to
right.
race. We
Sure.
came here and you're on your race bike and you're supposed to be but what I wanted was, and I think he was like kind of sheepish at first, but then he like had this major grin on his face. And it was because uh, my guess is it's because dad recognized that he was having his idea of a good time.
Yeah. Well, that's
And
super positive though. But yeah, again, you're
yeah,
the exception to like every rule. Your kid's cool because you're cool, dude. You get that, right? Like he like the serious jerk dad that's yelling at his kid to, about how much money he spent and taking off work to go to that race. That kid's not doing that because his dad's probably gonna scream at him, make him do push-ups in the parking lot or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. And that's the difficulty is I don't want to deter them from it. I want
No,
even looking back on it. Let's say he's 12 and he decides he doesn't want to ride. I want him to look back at it as a positive experience.
sure.
And so, yeah, and then actually thinking about it now is that that next day, the whole reason that we were down there was we set up a BMX breakthrough tent and we were going to race at the state race. And it just got to the next morning and he goes, I don't think I want to race. And I was like, oh, okay. Are you sure? And I tried to check with him and he just literally had a great time hanging out all day and eating snacks while his sister and I raced.
Yeah. Well, that
Um,
I went through that with my kids too. Like, you go to the race. Like, do you want to race? Like, you making like deals with them. Like,
yeah,
if we go to whatever, if we go to Culver's on the way home, whatever. I don't even know what kind of deals I would make. But my
which is,
younger son, I felt like I always had to make about stuff, and
oh
he
yeah,
because it would work. Like,
gotcha.
okay, if we go to Burger King and you get a shake or whatever, I don't know. Something like
Which
some
is funny. Yeah,
pretty low rent deals.
you said Culver's. Being from the Northwest, I had never been to Culver's until a couple of years ago in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Uh,
Um, but yeah. Anyway, this is a
it's
total
fun.
detour.
No, it's funny. That's a funny detour because Culver's is from, I think it's from Wisconsin, and like cheese curds and all that, right?
Oh,
There weren't Culver's around here at all. The first place I ever saw Culver's was going to Rockford to AVA Nationals. We would stop on the horrible toll road that you're on for 10 hours. Um, there was, it was like the kind of the last stop after you'd been driving through Chicago and we would go to Culver's. We didn't even know what it was. And I'm vegetarian too, so Culver's has veggie burgers now, but that one didn't. And I don't even know what it got back
wow.
then, but then Culver's started popping up around here. Like they're pretty new. Like they're of my kid's era. I'm gonna say like I remember taking my oldest son Noah to gymnastics when he was like 3, and we'd go to Culver's afterward and get custard. That's what they sell. It's not ice cream, it's custard. But yeah, Culver's is newer around here too, but they're everywhere now. Around here at least.
Okay. Yeah. Not in the Northwest yet, but um, hey, I wanna ask you about Greystoke before we wrap things up. And which is not probably not a quick conclusion, but anyway, I want to be respectful of your time and
Okay.
I anyway, okay, so you've got Greystoke and
Mm-hmm.
you play a role in this
Issue
magazine.
one.
So there it is. There it is.
Yeah,
I've got
I'm the.
I don't think I have issue 2 yet, but I do have issue 1. Anyway,
You don't?
no. No,
They're both right here.
I think I meant to order it and I think I probably forgot. So there they are.
Okay. Yep.
Anyway, okay, so tell us about Greystoke.
Yeah, print magazine. I'm from the magazine era. As you started out, like the magazine thing to me is everything I do. I work for Haro Bikes and I wear a lot of hats, but a lot of what I do my day to day and before I worked at Haro is stuff I learned at the magazine. Like I write when I worked at BMX Plus, I would have to write captions and product reviews and product descriptions and bike tests and all that is literally a big part of what I still do. Like I write all the web descriptions for all kinds of bikes for Haro, like road bikes, mountain bikes, everything. Um, but Greystoke, my friend Will Smith, who started Dig magazine, this is Dig, in 1993, so which is now the longest running BMX print magazine. And it's a annual magazine now. But a few years ago, he said, um, he's in Ireland, and we had a phone call, and he kind of proposed this idea of this magazine aimed at older riders, and I was like, I thought he was crazy. I'm like, ah, dude, really? We're gonna make a magazine about it? And I guess I was thinking more in terms of like, like collector bikes and all that kind of stuff. which is part of the older bike or the older BMX culture, if you will. But then we talked about it again, and it started to make more sense for me, and it really made sense for him, and he believed in it. And I mean, he's the publisher, and he's the one that knows how to make magazines. But I'm the editor of the magazine, um, which means for both of these, I wrote a lot of it. I shot a fair amount of photos, but I'm the kind of the coordinator, like I'm this first issue. This is a photo from 1974, but it's by Mel Stoutzenberger. Do you know who he is?
I don't.
He's a photographer from the super early days. Just takes amazing photos. He took, I mean, if you have the first issue, he took all these photos. Like they're just
Okay.
crazy, great photos. But I knew him a little bit. Yeah, that would be, I mean, the article's called Day One, and it's just, um, so that's like the super archival aspect is to have like some historical content, but then it's also for people that still ride. Um,
It's awesome. It's
like
it's a really cool magazine. It's very, very pretty in the way that it's put together. It's like a coffee table book.
yeah, it's supposed to be like this bike. I had this bike here for a long time, but like my friend Sean, my photo sensei, I was talking about, like he shot these photos. Like they're beautiful photos, BMX bikes. Like it's not easy to take a cool photo of a BMX. But someone even uh, Mike Escamilla, who's a big help and a contributor, he was like, there's a full page photo of a seat post in there, which was kind of a jab, but he's not wrong. But yeah, I'm really proud
Wait,
of it.
was he saying that in a negative way?
Yeah, like we
Oh,
could do better. That's kind of a waste of space, but it
gotcha.
was also kind of making a point. The
Yeah.
one thing when we got issue two, I was like, oh, it's so much more colorful. Just from like if you at a glance, you're like, oh, is it like a black and white magazine? Because there's a black and white photo and like it is a blue logo, but you would never know. But
Yeah. It's very
yeah,
faint.
so I mean, well, like here's a good example. This in issue two, which you haven't seen, is an article on Jag BMX, which is an offshoot of Mongoose. That
Okay.
was
Yeah.
like one of the first like really culturally and racially diverse BMX teams. And it was just always really intriguing story to me. And I put so much work and it was so much effort to get in touch with a lot of these people. And some of the people are no longer with us. Like the guy Rennie Roker who started Jag. He died a few years ago, but I talked to his widow, Carmen Roker, who was a key part of his partner in Jag. And she was great. And she gave me so much info. And I talked to his son, Kelly Roker, who was like a little tiny kid when Jag started in 1978. And I couldn't believe how much he remembered. And then I talked to people that were on the team, and people are like tearing up, telling me stories about, you know, Anthony Sewell, who was probably the most famous rider that rode for Jag, who passed away in 2009. But just like stories like that, I think anyone like you don't know anything about Jag. It's way before your time. But if you read the article and looked at it, it would mean something. And I feel like that's like the biggest accomplishment for me is to kind of tell see what you're trying to do. We're trying to tell a story. And the story of that company is really cool. But
Yeah. Well,
that's a historical thing. But then it's really to keep like I had nothing to do with this. The main feature in here is from this English magazine called Read and Destroy. And like the photos from this are so awesome. Like the cover photo, like I didn't realize it for a long time, but the one kid has roller skates on. But it's just like kids at the skate park just in awe of this dude with no helmet blasting. There's probably some bumpy concrete skate park from the 70s. But then it's a lot of photos of, dudes that are 40s, 50s still going for it.
yeah.
And we broach serious topics, like the first issue has an article on survivors, with two dudes that had like major heart attacks and two dudes going through cancer treatment, and just how they navigated that and how they're adjusting and how it affected and how it related to their life of BMX, And then this one we approached like substance abuse. There's a big article on that. That Bob Osborne told me, which was the biggest compliment ever. I sent him that issue. That it was, I wish I could tell you what he said. He said it was like one of the best pieces it was one of the best perspectives he'd read about substance abuse. And I took that as a huge, I mean, it's Bob Osborne. Coming
Yeah.
from him, that was pretty huge. Because
Well,
that was kind of my story too. That I've been sober for 14 years, and that's part of my story too. So, like, that story was super challenging to write because a bunch of different people and different interviews. But I knew what I was talking about for the most part, Just like with anything with BMX, like I write about BMX stuff all day. Like I don't when I like for the Frogtown magazine, like Todd has asked me to write stuff. A lot of it, I don't even look any. I just write it from memory. Like it's stuff that I just know, which is ridiculous sometimes. But if it's Greystoke, it's not. I've said this before. It's not. It's not about me, but it's certainly for me. It's what I'm all about. So it's for BMX lifers.
yeah. No, it's really cool. I loved the fact, was it at Frogtown last year when Oz came up to you and wanted you to talk
Yeah.
about Greystoke?
He said, "Tell me about." Pause for just a second. He said, "Tell me about Greystoke." First of all, I'm blown away that Oz knows who I am, but he does, and I've interacted with him a few times over the years. But when he said that, I was like, "Wow, how do you even know?" It wasn't out yet. It actually it arrived at my house while I was at that Frogtown in 2023
Okay.
in several boxes that were outside, and it started raining. And I was like, told my family, like, those boxes show up. I think my wife was like, "Yeah, those boxes are outside." And like, "Can you please bring them in?" They were not stoked because they're heavy. Like it's like the freestyle movement book is so heavy. It's like five of those in a box.
If you're
But
not home, we need to hire movers. Get them
yeah,
inside.
yeah, and well, it wasn't that many, but yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. So that's great. So issue three is supposed to come out twice a year. It's almost June. Issue three, we're still kind of planning, but
Okay.
a lot of people subscribed. When I see those subscriptions come through, I'm like, oh my God, they're subscribed. We have to make enough, which of course we want to, but it's no one's full-time job, that's for sure. And it can't be, like it doesn't really make money or anything.
Yeah. Yeah,
It wasn't created. We knew it wasn't going to make money, but it has to sustain itself. It can't totally lose money.
it's not like BMX action in the 80s. Not
No,
not
it's
doing
definitely
that.
not that. No.
Um, Man. Well, Scott, this has been fun. I
Yeah.
appreciate getting to chat with you.
Yeah. Thanks for, I'm glad we actually talked about your subject at hand, like we
Yeah,
could ramble about all kind of dumb stuff, but I know
I, I
I
don't know.
understand the basic premise of what you're trying to do, and I did have thoughts on it. I don't know, think we got anywhere with the conversation.
No, I thought it was great. I mean, I think rambling's kind of the goal to some extent.
Yeah.
Like, I want to just have a conversation with you. And, I mean, maybe selfishly, some of these conversations are just because I want to talk to you and then I'll put them in the archive. And if somebody else wants to listen, cool.
Yeah, cool. Well,
So,
I enjoy talking to you every time we've spoken. So I told myself at one point, I'm like, I shouldn't do more podcasts. I always say things I shouldn't say or talk too much or I ramble so much. And I tried not to on this one, but, you know, it's always stuff to talk about. With BMX, I can talk about it all day. Like I said, we could talk about my first year of racing all probably. There's no shortage of topics for sure.
yeah. No, I think it's fun. And yeah, you and I have had quite a few conversations. It's funny because we actually went through, we were at Frogtown 2 together. We were at Dirty Fest 1 and we didn't speak at either one. Like I mean, I had seen you in passing, but we didn't actually talk until last year at Dirty Fest too.
I wasn't. I know I met you briefly because I took a picture of you
Oh, and Jill.
and Jill. Because I have that picture. I was meant to send it to you today. It because I took the picture. I know you're wearing a bicycle motocross action jersey.
Yeah,
And I think she is wearing. I think she is too. I think that's probably why I took the picture because you guys are wearing those shirts.
we're at the base
And
of the
we,
announcer tower.
yeah, yeah, I know exactly what it was. Yeah, we spoke briefly that time. And that's the first time we really talked. And I didn't go to Dirty Fest one. It was right before I started working. In fact, the first conversation I had with my now boss was right after Dirty Fest one. He's like, "Oh, you should have been there. It was great." Like he was all about it. But
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Huh. Then
so
I
we talked at the other Frogtown in
okay.
23 and 24, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
because I
got
went to three of those. Yeah,
okay, because I did not. Oh, no, I've been to three. It's been three already? It has.
there's been four.
There's
Because there
been
was one
four,
in
but I've been
20.
to three.
I don't think many people made it to that first one because it
Yeah.
didn't know what it was and it got kind of rained out and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's a freaking mission to get to that place. So it's part
It
of it.
is a long ways from everywhere.
Yeah,
It
it's a cool
is.
place.
It is. Yeah, if you can find it.
I remember maybe 2 years ago when I went there. The first time when I drove there from Haro by myself, and I was like, man, what a cool place. This would be a cool place to retire. And then I was like, but my kids would never, like my wife there, but our kids would never come to see us. Or it's so hard to get.
Yeah.
We'd never see our kids again. Maybe not. Maybe not retiring in where is it?
Angels
Uh,
Camp?
Angels Camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But no, I appreciate having a conversation with you, and has been fun. It's always fun when we get to talk, but uh,
cool.
getting to hear some of your stories, and you have a different perspective on the history of BMX as being in Michigan. You know,
Yeah.
there's uh, a lot of the stories that people know come from Southern California,
Yeah.
and so obviously that's where the sport really got big, and took off. But I enjoy talking to people that are all around the country because they have a different story to tell. So
Yeah. That's not to keep going, but because that's why the magazine is so important because that's how we learned about BMX in California. Like it's how we knew or kind of knew what we were supposed to be doing here. And that's all there was back then.
yeah,
Literally all there was. There was no other zero other forms of communication about BMX. None.
yeah, it's wild to think about, but
Yeah, it is. But
anyway.
doesn't seem that long ago. I mean, it was, but also wasn't.
But like you said at the beginning of toward the beginning of the episode, like people still don't know about BMX now.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
So
Like, I can't tell you how many times that, like, you do the
y-
same thing. You're
your
like, oh, some
your
mountain bikes? No, no, no,
well,
no.
and like your generation was like the first ones to really get into BMX and popularize
Hmm.
it. And you look at the people that are going to these old school events, and granted they are old school events, but it's the
Yeah,
same people. And
right,
it has been for the last 40, 50 years.
right.
And so, and then, I mean, you do have a modern slew of racers, but I think it would be really cool to find a way to incorporate some of those riders
If there
into the
was,
old school events.
yeah, if there was something that met in the middle, it would work, right? Like
Yeah.
something not. I'm not saying that it even has to be like an old school division or anything like that. 'Cause that's like racing on. Like I'm surrounded by those bikes, and choosing a bike for those events for me is like, okay, which one's least likely to break in half and kill me? You know what I mean? Because they were never great.
Oh,
Actually,
we were
those
at, oh, go ahead.
45 bikes, yeah. I mean, so I'm not even suggesting that, but if there was like some version of racing, even if it's USA BMX, that was like rec league racing, that wasn't, just that same. But that's a lot to ask. You're gonna have a separate track. You're gonna have a different track.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, we were at Guy Cooper's house. We went to race on Sunday. It was a Saturday, Sunday event. And I was hesitant to race on Sunday because we had gotten quite a bit of rain overnight on Saturday. And it's red dirt out in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So I didn't want to get that because once it hardens on your bike, it'll destroy like mountain bike derailleurs and stuff. Like
Oh yeah,
it just turns to concrete. And so I thought, well, I don't really want to ride the bikes on that because I don't want to have to clean it, and that's a ton of work. And
yeah,
so anyway, and Cash Matthews goes, no, it's on our bikes. It's on vintage bikes. Don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, well then I'll race.
yeah.
Well, it was on every single one of them. They had to have a coaster brake. There were Schwinn's, there were some Mongoose, there were I don't know, a couple other bikes that were mixed in there, but they were all coaster brake. And like the rule was to get up on the gate, everybody has to make motorcycle sounds. Down the first straight,
Nice.
everybody has to make motorcycle sounds. And then originally you were talking about the bike that's least likely to break. And at first the rule was do not stand up. You're not allowed to stand
Oh
up. If you
God.
stand up, you're disqualified. You have to stay on the seat. And really,
That's even more dangerous with a 200-pound person on a sketchy seat that's gonna slip. The
it's
clamps always strip out. And,
well, that's true. Well, then anyway, Guy ended up changing it and he goes, you know what? You can stand up, but it is at your own risk because these chains have not been replaced. So
right.
do what you want to do, but just
Yeah.
know that it might not survive you. So
Yeah.
anyway,
That's
I mean,
that's
but it was such a fun race. Like, I mean, absolutely incredible. It
yeah.
was just fun, goofy. People are laughing. People are smiling the whole way. On the way up, people are
Yeah. That
laughing.
seems like a super fun event.
So,
I don't know Guy Cooper, but Cash Matthews is just an awesome dude.
yeah,
He understands like the fun aspect for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, he's always a good time and fun to be around. So,
Yep.
right
Cool.
on. Well,
All right.
Scott, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jay.
Have a good
Appreciate it.
evening, and
You too.
I will see you at Dirty Fest.
Yeah, I'll be there for Hollow.
Okay, right
Cool.
on.
All right. See you then.
Cool. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. It is because of people like you and our sponsors who make this whole thing possible because they have a desire to see the sport grow. If you would like to get involved in the mission of BMX Breakthrough, you can start by going to your local track, find a way to volunteer, help out, and serve there. Or you can go to our website, bmxbreakthrough.com, in order to donate, find out about sponsorship, or learn more.